Hello, everyone. My name's Elan Lee. We are switching things up today. I'm not even going to introduce myself yet because mostly I'm excited that today, as we play through this glorious course here, I'm going to be interviewing you, Lucas, as the CEO of the company. I want to know everything, all the details. I have 1.5 million questions, and the reason that I wanted to switch this up instead of you interviewing me is because I'll bet that everybody watching has 1 million questions for you as well, and hopefully I can at least hit sort of the tip of the iceberg on some of those. So if you're game, I want to interview you today.
I love this. I love that I get to go to the steering wheel and I'm just going to show up and play a little bit of mini golf and relinquish hosting duties. It's all you.
Amazing.
Thank you for doing this.
Okay. Yeah, it is absolutely my pleasure. I am so excited to be here. This is actually my first time seeing this course, and I was just saying, absolutely overwhelmed. Just noticing the difference between the first few courses and this one, the level of detail is staggering. But even before we jump into what you've built here, why you've built it, what the design sensibilities are, can you take us way back in history about how did you go about building the first? How did you even go about starting the company? How did you end up saying one day, I want to build a mini golf game for a virtual reality environment?
Well, that was actually very much sort of that's definitely not what we started out as. We started off mostly as an animation studio. So my background, I made a short film called Pigeon Impossible that was the basis for Spies in Disguise. It came out with Will Smith and Tom Holland. It was the last Blue Sky.
What year are we talking about here?
I finished it in 2009, and then Spies in Disguise came out in 2019. So that was a solid 15 years of my life because it took me 5 years to make that short film.
Wow.
So
all right, now hold on. I'd be a bad host if I didn't say, as you answer, take your damn shot. So we're gonna get through this stuff here.
Okay, I gotta golf now.
All right.
Stop.
So, all right, 2009.
Yep.
And so that's a big switch between building animations and truly interactive VR, one of the best, in my opinion, best VR games in the world. What happened next? How did you start down this next stage of the path? And I'm going to take my shot.
I actually took one of the option payments from Fox and put that towards another short film called The Ocean Maker, and that was one that I had been working at. I was working at a small, just sort of freelance New York post shop, producing one of their animated shows for the Yo Gabba Gabba guys. So I was in New York, nice. And I was just sort of it was awesome, but it was also, I realized at one point that working in animation in Manhattan, I didn't see the sun because I would get to work at 8 or 9 in the morning, and by the time I left, the sun was basically just down below the building. And I realized that so many of the other folks who were there with me, all amazing, animators and artists, I realized that none of us had seen the sun. So I had this idea for another short that eventually became The Ocean Maker. But the idea for it was that, what if we did sort of an animation camp and took all these awesome animators who have not gotten a chance to actually, see the sun a little while, and let's do it in a place that we can actually all be together. Because usually short animated projects are just sort of you're piecing it together. There's never enough budget to really sort of hire people full time. And so it means that you're just working on it for years and years piecemeal. And the general idea is let's do a focused, I think it was 7 weeks, and there were 8 of us, and I ended up just renting, my wife and I, we just rented a couple of houses down on this little island off the coast of Belize called Key Cocker. And we went down there and we basically made the short pretty much on laptops over the course of the 7-week period. There was still some work to do on home, but that's actually why, because it was sort of that, it was that experience that sort of became the start of Mighty Coconut, and that's also why we named ourselves Mighty Coconut, because we wanted something that sort of harkened back to that, that island environment, and it was a great way to sort of start in the studio as a way to sort of keep the band together after our Belize retreat experience thing.
Oh, I love that. I love that we got the origin of the company name right out of that as well. So you basically are running like a hackathon for content creation, for film creation.
Exactly. That's straight up what it was. It was very much like a game jam, but a longer period. But yeah, sort of like it was animation camp.
I love that. And so what was the outcome of that session?
Well, we basically got the film more or less done. We still had to do lighting, rendering, and effects and stuff when we got back. We were just working on laptops, and but we got all the story figured out. We went down there with just I think the lead character was modeled, and we had a couple of layout assets, and we pretty much just got the rest of it like really figured out over the course of that trip. And then we came back, finished that up, and then, go ahead.
Well, how many days were you there?
So there were 8 of us down there for about 7 weeks.
Okay.
So yeah, it was basically sort of like to do, but it's a full. You could check it out. It's on YouTube. Just I think it's got like it's actually done better than Pigeon Impossible in terms of just like number of views. But yeah, you can check it out. Oh, that was actually a halfway decent shot.
That was a great
but
shot.
yeah, so the Ocean Maker, it's been gone through various states. There is a series that we have been pitching around, and we're still kind of looking for the right home for it, but it still we've got a couple producers attached, and we're still sort of in that constant state of trying to get that one, the longer version of that, the Ocean Maker going. So it's still something we're very much sort of like, kind of, it's always percolating, and like Pigeon Impossible took 5 years to make and then 10 years to actually get the feature done. So
wow,
this one, the fact that this came out Ocean Maker came out in 2014. So we still got a couple more years to stay on schedule.
I also appreciate that as we're having this discussion, you're not ridiculing my horrendous golf shots as I try to keep up with you here.
I just realized I should be playing left-handed. No.
I insist. No. Please. As long as you don't mind waiting up for me a little bit, please play right-handed. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So all right. And we have to take just a moment. Oh my God, this guy is adorable. Look at this.
The worm made it in.
This, so beautiful. Well done. I absolutely love this. Okay.
It was so much fun. We did a live stream a couple of days ago, and Karen Perel, who was the original puppeteer and I believe voice of the worm, was in here playing with us. So it was wild to to get her full circle.
What a treat! Oh, I love it. Okay. All right. So now you've got a small team. You're building content. It's you're working your way towards stuff that you're saying you're more and more proud of. It's really coming together. What happens next? Because we're still not anywhere near, it sounds like, VR Walkabout Golfland.
Yeah, no, we were still quite a little ways away from that because basically we formed Mighty Coconut to kind of keep the band together, and largely we were doing, like most animation studios, we were paying the bills by doing work for hire. We were doing commercials, we were doing visual effects, we were doing some, basically just anything that would sort of like use the skills and put those to, roll off of there. Ooh. But yeah, so we did a lot of that sort of just straight up just work for hire stuff to pay the bills, keep the band together, and in the process of that, we were also developing a lot of other stuff. So throughout all of that, I was also writing. I probably did, I don't know, maybe about a half dozen series, and probably close to the same number of animated features that we were out pitching. Several of them got through various stages of development, and then they say that in Hollywood, sort of like the general rule is about 1 out of 10, especially when you're in that starting out phase. If you can get like 1 out of every 10 that you pitch, and 1 out of even every 10 that you set up actually ends up getting made. So it was a whole lot of writing and world building and storytelling, and and we were constantly pitching ourselves as the animation studio, as well as sort of like partnering with a couple of other people. We had a couple projects with Octavia Spencer and Jessica Chastain. We were working on their projects for, that they were pitching some stuff around. So yeah, so that's also kind of where a lot of this, the ability to sort of like reach out to folks like the Henson Company came from, because we had been
Sure.
very much sort of in that world, and we're at least somewhat of a known quantity to folks like that. So
Yeah.
and
All right.
then
So wait, what year? Where are we now? Give me a timeline.
this would have been
update.
like 2017, 2018. We did a full animated series with Mighty Coconut called Kings of Atlantis, which was back when YouTube Originals was fully funding all their own like animated series and stuff.
Right. Right.
And then a little before we had kind of started to scale down some of that a little bit, to be honest, just because, how do I put it, the animation industry sort of comes in waves, and there are moments where things are like there's a lot going on, and then it will also dry up. That also tends to bounce around a lot based off of tax incentives.
Sure.
And being a U.S. company was pretty difficult. So we had actually kind of scaled down the animation thing with the intent that we were still going to be developing our own, but starting to get away from more of the hands-on sort of stuff. And I had done a couple of small games at the studio. 57 North was one, Laser Mazer was another. Both basically just like, it was sort of like a little project that we did on the side to sort of like have something that we owned and could fully produce ourselves. And Walkabout was something that I started as part of that process. And it only became a VR game very late in the process. I've told this story, so I won't repeat too much of it, but basically
wait. No,
we had
assume you should start over. I would really like to hear it. Yeah.
Okay. So Laser Mazer, it won one of the Indiecade Europe awards, and it was based off of this kind of it was basically a phone game that you play, but it's using the AR functions of it to do like a monoscopic VR. So you physically walk around the real world, but you're looking through the phone and you sort of see this maze of lasers that you're solving puzzles or physical challenges and stuff. But it's sort of like physical challenge. So we actually demoed it in like one of the Canam in Paris, but they had this giant courtyard. So we had like 1,000 square meters basically, where people could literally just be like running around. I mean, we actually put a speed limit into the game so people wouldn't hurt themselves.
Amazing.
But
wait. Hold on.
Yeah.
This still feels like a jump to me. Why the incentive to jump into interactive?
So it was always something that I also like doing. A lot of the skills are not too far off from animation. And to be honest, I think a big part of it was that as we were scaling up as a studio, we were doing more and more big animation projects, which also meant that I was sort of missing I was missing a little bit of the hands-on stuff, because I do really enjoy actually getting my hands dirty. And when you're on a larger animation production, I think we had 40-some people at one point, you just don't get to sort of like really get your hands dirty. It's just meetings, and that's great. But games to me were sort of like a way to sort of scratch the itch that had been fulfilled by doing a lot of the animated shorts and stuff like that. So
sure. And now, as a fellow creator, but also as a fellow head of a studio, at this point, I'm really curious. How much creative work are you doing versus how much management, and how do you feel about that balance?
I mean, right now it's probably about, at this particular moment, I've been more on the management side just because we have scaled up the team. This went from being a solo project a little less than 2 years ago to now we've got, I think, 24 people on the team. So, and a lot of that scale up has happened in the last year. So it's definitely been a bit of a change. And we're kind of getting to the point where things are starting to work out, to the point that like I can get back to the creative stuff. I still get to do a little bit of it, but now I'm trying to carve out more time for myself to do some of that, and to be focusing on the next projects or some of the things that we need from it helps to have someone come in that sort of like kind of creatively owns something. We're always kind of looking for that with all of the people that we're working with. So,
and has that now, but as you built the first app, is this, like, are you still flexing your creative muscle, or have you already started with, as you say, the mostly management task?
I am actually, because the nice thing about Walkabout is that it's almost like producing a TV show where it's almost episodic, and that you've got a different course, a new course coming every rolling delivery, one every month, or we're not quite up to that month yet, but so the nice thing is that I am still getting to flex the creative muscles a little bit, and I'm trying to carve out a couple of courses, especially upcoming ones, that I actually get to jump in and design on. And we just got back from a creative retreat for one of the other upcoming courses. So we are doing it. It's just that I'm finding that I really have to carve out the time and really make it a priority in order to be able to do some of the hands-on stuff that I still love.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh.
So...
I'm trying to follow in your footsteps here, but wow, this is... I can't believe I'm not talking more about how beautiful these props are, this scenery, but I'm also kind of mesmerized by your story. So I'm going to keep trying to find a balance here. Okay. All right. Okay, so
it's
apps are now
It is
being
a very
made.
long-winded, very confusing story. I'll fully admit that.
I love it. My favorite kinds. So, apps are being built. Team is being grown. What comes next?
So we hit the so let me finish up because it actually does sort of apply.
Please.
So the cool thing about Laser Mazer is that it was built for the phone, and it was using the phone to do like, it was full 6-DoF, full positional tracking. We were using AR kit in the phone, but functionally it was a VR game. And so I had basically sort of played around with that idea, and was like, oh, I bet we could do mini golf. And we have a version of it that's actually going to be releasing pretty soon, where you physically putt by swinging your phone, just gently, but you're just, it's like you're looking down the barrel of your putter. And so it started off as that, and then the Quest came out, and the Quest was so different because it was standalone and it was mobile. It was very hard to develop for, because you really had to optimize it to run on a phone very efficiently at an incredibly high resolution and frame rate, which we already happened to have with this golf game. That at that point, sort of like we even had like one of the courses was basically kind of done. So
did it have a name at that point?
We were calling it Walkabout. Walkabout was actually the name of the engine that we created for Laser Mazer, because you were walking about. And so that just kind of became start of the kind of like the default name, which kind of stuck because, I don't know, we just sort of like it. So
yeah.
But yeah, so it was called Walkabout from that very early phase. We didn't have any branding or anything, but we had showed it off at a couple places. And then the Quest came out, and because I had been at Indiecade, I had gotten to know a couple of the folks at Oculus. So at the next Indiecade, I had a chat with them, and I did a really quick port over to the Quest 1 at that point.
Right.
And it was very much sort of like a right place, right time, in the fact that we literally had a game that was like ready to go, and I was able to port it over to Quest in a matter of like a week or something, because it already had like 90% of the stuff in place.
Did they help you with the funding? Is it because they were looking for content?
They didn't fund anything. We just kept it ourselves, and at that point, I don't know if they were funding much. I don't think that anyone expected mini golf to sort of become the thing that it has become.
Right.
So everyone's like, oh yeah, mini golf, sure. Like, yeah, I mean, like, you've got it running on the platform. Like, yeah, let's do it. And so basically, they kind of gave us the green light to put it on the store. They didn't necessarily fund it, but at that point, it was also just me. Then the pandemic hit, and it went from being a sort of like kind of a thing that I'm working on in the background to a sort of like, okay, I need something to keep my head straight while all of this is going down and we're in lockdown. Yeah. So I dedicated about 6 months to really sort of like finishing it up. And then it came out a couple weeks before the Quest 2 launched. So again, a lot of luck, a lot of right place, right time.
How many courses did it launch with?
It launched with 4 courses.
Okay.
And even the multiplayer aspect was something that was a very late in the game addition, because Oculus at that point was just sort of starting to push, and I think that they knew the Quest was coming out and they knew that it was going to be big. I hadn't even bothered to do multiplayer because I didn't expect that there would be that many people with VR headsets. So they kind of talked me into adding multiplayer. And again, right place, right time. That was just sort of like the thing that has sort of like that has really sort of like helped it take off. Is just that ability to meet up with people. So it's a comedy of flukes and just sort of like different things, but it does come on the heels of, probably 20 or 30 other sort of like projects that either didn't get off the ground or that didn't find the audience that they did. So it's very much a case of just sort of keeping at it until something sticks.
Well, you mentioned the multiplayer, and for me, this is where I come into the story. For me, pandemic hits, and I have this problem, which is I really need to keep in touch with friends, and social is out, right? Staring at someone, so I can't go for walks, I can't go to conferences, I can't stare at another Zoom call. Like me staring at a friend and trying to talk about interesting things in our backgrounds is just horrid. And this, we found Mini Golf, me and a small group of friends found it, we found Walkabout by accident, and it was the perfect intermediate. Like it was not quite let's stare at our own backgrounds, not quite let's go for a walk, but it was conversation, it was catching up, sprinkled with these sporadic moments of delight and cheer and disappointment. And it really, like, one of the reasons I'm such a huge fan of this is I believe it saved me in the pandemic. I really believe it is the thing that maintained a good 50% of my social relationships. And so thank you so much for making it. It's been amazing.
Like I said, it was all a fluke. We can't take too much credit for that, but yeah, it's so great to hear from other people that it's made that big of a difference, and that our little mini golf game is actually having like a greater impact on the world.
I appreciate the modesty, but it is truly an impressive thing that you built, and wow, was that a nice shot. Well done. Okay, so now the game is out there. It's got the game's out there. It's got 4 courses. It's just you. What follows? How was it received? Who found it first? How did it meet with any degree of success?
It was definitely, there were very few games that were out at that time. So it was definitely sort of like you deal with like now, like a lot of people, indies, especially releasing something on Steam or on mobile, where there are just hundreds of games that come out a day. Very, very difficult. But we were in a lucky boat that there just wasn't that much out there yet, because especially the Quest was so difficult to develop for. So it found oops, oh, that's going to stink the whole rest of the course now. It definitely, it found an audience with the people who owned headsets, but it wasn't like a massive runaway success or anything, but it was absolutely one of those things that as a solo developer, it was very much worth it. And then what we kind of realized is that it was starting to gain an audience with more and more people, and there were a whole lot of new people buying headsets and kind of coming into that. So rather than working on another game, which is probably what I would have done in the past, like, well, let's start adding more to it. And so we started adding more courses, adding more features.
You just said we. Who's the we?
I guess at that point it probably would have been the royal we, I guess, at that point. But then we did shortly after that add in. So Henning came on board to help out with the Fox Hunts originally, and then he's now our lead course designer. Edward came on probably a few months after that, just sort of part-time helping out on the modeling side of things. So even that 5th course, Edward had started helping out a little bit, and then the 6th course was actually designed, that would have been, was it Tethys or Bogies? It would have been Tethys. Henning actually designed Tethys Station. So it was just me, Henning, and Edward for probably about, probably a little less than a year. And we were just sort of slowly adding to it. And then as the quest continued to get bigger and bigger, and the game sort of like, it's kind of taken on a life of its own, because it is something that a lot of people are starting to find and come into, and it is a really good sort of entry point for when people first get a VR headset. It's a great starting point, but it's also something that you kind of can keep coming back to it. The replayability is really, really high. And I say that just sort of like,
Yeah.
not taking credit for that, because a lot of that is just sort of like the nature of mini golf. So,
Well,
again, sort of
a lot of that is
luck.
That's true. A lot of it is the nature of mini golf, but you've also done an incredible job at the lost balls, the fox hunts. Where did the inspiration from that come from? Like, how that's not a typical thing for a mini golf course. Where did those come from?
I think the lost balls. So, I definitely kind of consider myself, and like the thing that I love most is sort of world building. And what we're finding, even on those early courses, was that let me focus on my shot here for a moment, was that very, very, even those early courses, we were spending a lot of time building out this environment that wasn't directly related to gameplay, but felt so critical for just like when you go to mini golf, it's half about the golf, but also just about being in the place,
Sure.
And so spending a lot of time really building out these larger environments. And then if you're taking that much time to build out those environments, it's sort of like, well, it's not that difficult to add just a few other little things to help encourage people to get out and explore that. So the lost balls started there. Fox hunts and the putters were something that came later. That was the thing that Henning came on originally to do, and then became the lead course designer.
Wow.
That was all just sort of like kind of like little ideas that, I always tend to think very, very big, and I had kind of boiled it down to like a minimum viable product in order to get it onto the store and just see how it did. And then as it sort of like has kind of grown and continued to grow, we've been able to kind of start doing many of those things that in some cases were parts of, things that we had wanted to do from the very beginning and just didn't have the time, people, resources, all that sort of stuff to do. So that was all part of an encouraging exploration, and just really respecting that, half of mini golf is the place as well as the mini golf. It's not just the...
Right. Mm-hmm. It's so impressive. Like, I love the fact that I'm just as excited to, wow, that was a great shot. I'm just as excited to try a course for the 5th or 6th time to discover new things. I'm taking mental note of all the little secret passageways in this course that I'm anxious to come back and try over and over. I'm noticing that my ball is spitting out fumes, presumably because it dropped in the muck back there. Like, just a million beautiful little details that just add to that replayability that I think is just so brilliantly designed and really just deserves incredible kudos.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, this course was definitely the one that we really kind of got to. All those little ideas are like, no, this is our first licensed course. It's Labyrinth, which we all know and love. We just really wanted to bring it, leave it all out on the field and do all of the little things that had, that we had sometimes been like, oh yeah, that's a fun idea, we'll see if we have time. And this one we just really sort of buckled down, like, nope, we have to do all of those little things because they do add up.
Amazing. So as you look at some of the first courses, are there things you wish you had done differently? Are there big mistakes you wish you could correct?
I mean, I think that a lot of the gameplay in the earlier ones is great, and it serves as a great introduction, especially because they're generally not quite as challenging. I'm still really proud of those. I think that the only thing that I would really, and we have talked about at some point maybe going back and like remastering some of those, because now that we have the full team and we've got a lot of folks who are much more, who are much better, because when I was doing sort of like almost all of it myself, a lot of those were using, they were using some assets, some stock assets. They were, the lighting was good, but it wasn't sort of like, it wasn't at the level that it's at now. I do feel like there's just sort of a big opportunity that if we had had the team that we have now on those earlier courses, they would just be a lot richer. So I'm still super proud of those, and I still think they're a great, they're super fun to play still. But I would love to kind of go back now that we have the full team and sort of like make, give Tourist Trap or give Cherry Blossom sort of the extra bit of polish that some of these later courses have gotten. Sure.
That would be such a treat. I would love to see some of those courses remastered. That would be incredible.
Yeah, and I don't think that we would necessarily change gameplay on that. It would mostly just be a visual,
Right.
you know, adding the windy plants, giving it some of the extra lighting effects and shader effects and better water and yeah, all that sort of stuff.
Are there effects, either visual or gameplay related, that you have not yet been able to add to any course that you wish you could?
We're kind of constantly. So Craig is our lead tech artist, and he has done some really, really awesome stuff. There are a few things, like I know we had an early on version that was sort of in the Gardens of Babylon. I know that there was some really fancy sort of like moving leaf stuff that it just would not run on the system. It's a lot of stuff like that that we can, that it's just sort of like limited by the tech that's available, but
Yeah.
despite a lot of people sort of say, in fact, this is a good spot to even look at it, sort of like, a lot of people sort of look like, oh, it's low poly, it's very easy. The reality is, though, that we are putting such massive environments on screen at any given time that,
Oh my goodness.
well, yes, there are games that might look more realistic, but just the sheer scope of something like this, and even if you fly up, you can, you know, you really get the sense of just like the scale of this world. You really have to like heavily optimize every single thing to an inch of its life just in order to get something this large to run. And the fact that you could look back at hole one and still see, you know, the house that we came in on, that's the to us, that's a really big part of mini golf, is that sort of like that sense of progress and seeing where you came from. So
it's so beautiful. And this, the view from here it's just stunning. I play a lot of games on the Quest, and this is just my absolute go-to. When I need to show someone the system, this is what I come back to. And I will tell you right now, I now have a new showpiece to show people as they jump in. So beautiful. Holy crap, look at this. This is my first time seeing this level. This is just staggering. Wow. Yeah. All right, I have no idea how I'm going to get from here to the hole, but let's see what happens.
I've really loved the reaction videos. I really love the reaction videos the first time people get to play around with that. I took a shot off the crack.
Okay, so I'm, okay. Wow.
Ooh, almost made it.
This is so smart. This is so good. Okay, sorry. I'm supposed to be asking you questions, and all I'm doing is remarking on how stunningly, what an amazing use of physics in here. Wow.
It's such a mind trip. People have been asking. We are starting to look at more mechanics and more things that you could really only do in VR. So just that weird sense of like, what does putting on a wall feel like? Getting to do some VR specific things.
Do you ever have real golf courses contact you and want to have chats about stuff that you've done or stuff that you've learned, or is this just fascination for virtual?
We're friendly with a handful of folks in the real life mini golf community. Some, you know, tournaments, a couple of folks here, especially around Austin. So that's your turn, not mine. So
okay, but wait, I don't even know what I'm aiming for. Go on. Sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say it's your turn actually, but no. So we're not like actively. Nice shot. We're not like working on any real life stuff, but we are friendly with a handful of folks in real life, and I think that we've done a good enough job sort of like simulating real life mini golf close enough that there's a decent number of even, you know, pro or pro-am real life mini golfers who have started meeting up and playing here. So
that's so fun. What an incredible accomplishment. I absolutely love that. Wow. Sorry, just constantly
we're
overwhelmed
really
at how beautiful this is. Maybe. All right,
shot.
Stayed in. Whew. So cool. So I wanted to also spend a moment and talk about the club design, the actual golf clubs. Is that what takes? I would imagine that club design doesn't take very long, but some of these are stunning. Are these is this a part that you have to schedule time for, or are they afterthoughts? Are they built into the levels? Like how does this work for you?
So that actually started off like all of the lost balls and the putter designs they've gotten more complex when we started spending more time compared to the entire level. It really isn't. Compared to the rest of the level, it's really not that much extra work, but we do have to plan it, we have to design it, we have to schedule it, and especially for I won't spoil the one that's in Labyrinth here, but especially if you're working with an outside, for Labyrinth, we had to talk to Henson and show them our putter and ball designs and get them to sort of sign off and make sure that we were using everything in the best way. But
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so it takes a little bit, but it's one of those things that it adds a lot to the experience for a couple of days of work, basically. It's not, it's absolutely worth it.
So tell me what it's like working with an outside partner. Well done.
All yours.
All right, I'm going to hold off on taking this shot.
Yeah. So, Henson has been fantastic to work with. They're still relatively small, especially for a film and TV company. So we were able to, talk right to, a lot of people making the decision, and Labyrinth is one of those perfect IPs that it fits our world because we are so much about the place that you're in. And as much as we would love to do, all sorts of ideas, we are always having to sort of think of what is it about the place that the movie happens in, because that is 80-90% of the world, as great as the characters are. So something like this was fantastic in the fact that we were able to create the characters, and they were just super into it. I think it's also been fantastic for folks like them, because Labyrinth is likely something that it's not likely that it's going to get a standalone VR game. That would be millions of dollars of investment and a long time. But something like this is a great way that sort of that kind of have your cake and eat it too. You kind of get that Labyrinth, we keep talking about it, sort of like the Labyrinth theme park that never existed, and you still get to go there. It just happens to have a mini golf course running through the middle of it. So, but yeah, all of the licensed stuff it's been so fantastic to work with some outside folks and let them help push us in places that we wouldn't get to ourselves.
It's really well said. I mean, you have built an engine that accommodates storytelling for exactly partners like the Henson Company and Labyrinth. It never really occurred to me that you've got all of this engine, these incredible assets, and it's kind of the perfect home for those who it is not appropriate to build their own engine and design their own game and figure out their own tournament structure and all that stuff. Yeah, this is what a great landing pad you've built. I'm so excited to see more
by
more
accident.
partners. But really well cared for and curated, and really, really well done. I'm going to take my last shot, which I know will probably trigger the end of the interview. So let me also just quickly say, thank you for building this. This has just, like I said, it really saved me through the pandemic. I'm delighted. You built a mini golf course, and here we are conducting an interview within that engine. What an incredible accomplishment. And I hope you, from time to time, get to take a moment, take a step back and say, wow, really built something special here.
Well, thank you. It's so great getting a chance to just being able to sort of meet up with people and actually share it. Even for me, during the pandemic, my parents were beta testers, and so a lot of it was because I was getting in here with multiplayer with them and seeing what worked and what didn't, and also just getting a chance to connect. So it's again, I have to attribute so much of it to luck, but we're taking it and we're going to do as much as we can. And so thank you for being a fan and for coming with us on this weird ride.
I'm excited that this is only the beginning. So, all right. Now I'm going to try this final shot, and it would be amazing if I hit it on my first ever attempt
no
to
pressure.
trigger the end and thank you. But here we go. First ever attempt at this final hole. can't possibly miss this. This seems easy. All right. Well,
we'll just cut that out and act like
we'll
it
cut
hit
that
it.
out. We'll edit that. We'll edit that out. We'll put in this one instead.
Yeah.